Welcome to another episode. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there right now? Leave a comment if you'd like to share. And if you enjoy these quiet journeys through science and wonder, consider subscribing. It helps more than you might think. Tonight, we'll explore something that claims nearly a third of your life, yet remains wrapped in mystery, a world where reality softens, and the boundaries of time, thought, and self begin to blur. Sleep, and within it, dreams. We lie still, yet the brain becomes a theatre. We fall unconscious, yet something within us continues to watch, feel, remember. Why do we sleep? Why do we dream? And what do these nightly voyages tell us about the mind and the very nature of consciousness? From brain waves to ancient myths, from Freud and Jung to modern neuroscience, from the quiet rhythms of the body to the wild landscapes of the dreaming mind. This is a journey into the depths of what happens when we close our eyes. Not to give all the answers, but to rest inside the questions. So, if you're ready, let's begin. Sleep. It seems so simple. A natural pause in consciousness, a gentle letting go, and yet, behind the silence of closed eyes, the body engages in one of its most intricate biological rituals. For something that occupies about 1/3 of our lives, it remains one of the most quietly profound aspects of being human. So, what exactly is sleep? We might describe it as a temporary state of reduced awareness and activity, marked by a lowered response to external stimuli. The muscles relax, the eyes close, heart rate slows, breathing deepens, consciousness slips, replaced by something quieter, more internal. But this description only scratches the surface. Biologically, sleep is an active process. It is not a shutting down of the brain, but rather a complex orchestration of neural rhythms, chemical signals, and internal clocks, all working together to cycle through precise stages with astonishing regularity. Let's begin at the center of this clockwork. Deep inside the brain, nestled in the hypothalamus, lies a tiny bundle of about 20,000 nerve cells. This is the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, the master timekeeper of the body. It responds to light and dark, syncing our internal circadian rhythms to the 24-hour cycle of the Earth. Think of it as the conductor of your biological orchestra. It receives signals from the eyes, not the parts that see, but special cells that detect light. These signals tell the SCN when it's daytime and when night is falling. This system is so precise that, even in complete darkness, the body maintains a roughly 24-hour rhythm, though it tends to drift slightly, closer to 24.2 hours. Left without cues, we would slowly become out of sync with the sun, a reminder that, at our core, we are diurnal creatures tethered to the rotation of the planet. As the day winds down, light fades, and the SCN sends a message to the pineal gland, a tiny structure deep in the brain, to begin producing melatonin, often dubbed the hormone of darkness. Melatonin levels rise in the evening, making us feel drowsy. But it's not a sleeping pill. It's more like a whisper, a biological nudge that says, it's time. But once sleep begins, the story becomes even more fascinating. We do not simply fall asleep and remain there. Instead, we journey through distinct stages, cycling through them again and again, roughly every 90 minutes, throughout the night. These are typically grouped into two broad categories: NREM, non-rapid eye movement, and REM, rapid eye movement, sleep. Let's walk through them. The first stage, NREM Stage 1, is the threshold, a light doze where you drift in and out of awareness. Your muscles may twitch, thoughts blur. If someone speaks your name, you might still respond. Brainwaves slow down from their waking rhythm, shifting from beta to alpha, then to theta waves, a sign the mind is easing into sleep. Stage 2 is deeper. Here, the heart rate slows, body temperature drops, consciousness slips further. The brain begins producing short bursts of activity called sleep spindles and K-complexes, strange names for electrical flickers that seem to protect the sleeper from waking and help with memory consolidation. You spend most of the night in this stage. Then comes Stage 3, also called deep sleep or slow-wave sleep. The brain now emits powerful delta waves, long, slow electrical pulses that sweep through the cortex. It's here that the body repairs itself. Muscles rebuild, the immune system strengthens, growth hormone is released. If you've ever woken up feeling unusually refreshed, you likely had a good dose of this stage. Then, roughly 70 to 90 minutes after falling asleep, something remarkable happens. Your eyes begin to dart rapidly beneath closed lids. Your brain activity spikes, resembling that of waking consciousness. Dreams intensify, and you enter REM sleep. Despite the name, REM is not just about eye movements, it is a neurological symphony. The brain is highly active, particularly in the limbic system, which processes emotions, and the visual cortex, which creates mental imagery. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and critical thinking, goes quiet, which may explain why dreams often feel surreal or illogical. At the same time, the body becomes almost entirely paralyzed, a protective mechanism that prevents us from acting out our dreams. And then, the cycle begins again. Over the course of a typical night, you will complete 4 to 6 sleep cycles, each lasting around 90 minutes. But the distribution of sleep stages shifts. Early in the night, you spend more time in deep NREM sleep. Later, as dawn approaches, REM periods grow longer, sometimes lasting up to an hour. This pattern is not arbitrary, it's deeply functional. Each stage serves a purpose, for the body, for memory, for mood, for learning. But how did this system evolve? Why do we sleep at all? The short answer is, no one fully knows. Sleep is one of the great evolutionary puzzles. It is not an efficient use of time. While asleep, an animal is vulnerable. It cannot hunt, cannot mate, cannot defend itself. And yet, across the animal kingdom, from insects to elephants, sleep, or something very much like it, is nearly universal. That alone is telling. Evolution rarely favors behavior without a powerful reason. One hypothesis is energy conservation. Sleep reduces metabolic demand when activity would be inefficient or dangerous, like for nocturnal predators resting by day. Another is restorative. During sleep, the body repairs tissue, clears out cellular waste, and resets systems strained by waking life. In 2013, researchers discovered the glymphatic system, a kind of cleansing mechanism in the brain that becomes active during sleep, flushing out toxins like beta-amyloid, which is linked to Alzheimer's disease. Remarkably, this system is nearly 10 times more active during sleep than when awake. There's also the memory consolidation theory, the idea that while we sleep, especially during REM, the brain replays, reorganizes, and integrates information. Studies using EEG and fMRI have shown that the brain often reactivates neural patterns that were active during learning earlier in the day. It's as if the mind is rehearsing, quietly strengthening connections in the dark. Still, no single theory seems to capture the full picture. In truth, sleep appears to serve many purposes at once. It is not just rest. It is maintenance, healing, pruning, storing, reorganizing, and, at times, exploring. Sleep may be the brain's most elegant multitasking state. Interestingly, sleep is not a passive surrender, but a regulated and adaptive process. The body builds sleep pressure the longer we stay awake, a biological force governed by the buildup of adenosine, a chemical that promotes drowsiness. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors, effectively tricking the brain into feeling alert. But the sleep pressure doesn't disappear. It accumulates. Eventually, the body insists on sleep, and if denied long enough, it can begin to break down. In 1964, a high school student named Randy Gardner stayed awake for 11 days as part of a science fair experiment. By day 3, he experienced mood swings, memory lapses, and hallucinations. His speech slurred, his attention faded. By the end, he was disoriented and cognitively impaired. He recovered with normal sleep, but the experiment underscored how deeply sleep is tied to mental function. Sleep deprivation studies in rats have shown even graver outcomes. Within weeks, deprived animals lose the ability to regulate body temperature, suffer immune failure, and die, even when fed and hydrated. Sleep, it turns out, is more vital than food in some cases. Even partial deprivation, missing a few hours a night, can impair learning, emotional regulation, and decision-making. We pay a price silently for every lost hour, and yet modern life often treats sleep as a luxury. We set alarms to cut it short, wear exhaustion like a badge of productivity, push late into the night under artificial light, confusing the very signals our brains evolved to follow. Electricity, invented barely 150 years ago, has fundamentally changed the human sleep landscape. We now stay up longer, sleep less, and disrupt our natural circadian rhythms. Shift work, screen time, stress, and noise all contribute to what some researchers call a sleep epidemic. In the US, for example, about 1 in 3 adults doesn't get enough sleep, and the consequences ripple through health, productivity, and mental well-being. But sleep isn't gone. It waits, quietly, always ready to reclaim us. It arrives each night, often unnoticed, folding us into rhythms more ancient than memory. It is our reset button, our silent companion, and the gateway to something stranger still, because once sleep deepens, the dreaming begins. We sleep, but why? It's a question that has lingered for centuries, maybe longer. Philosophers, doctors, and scientists have speculated on the purpose of sleep for millennia, from Aristotle's musings to modern neuroscience laboratories with electrodes, brain scans, and sleep-deprived volunteers. Despite our progress, the full answer still escapes us. There is no single why, only a collection of compelling theories, all of which together reveal just how complex and essential sleep truly is. Let's begin with what feels most intuitive. Sleep restores us. This is one of the oldest and most enduring ideas, and one that has become increasingly supported by evidence. When we sleep, the body enters a state of repair. Muscles recover, tissues regenerate, growth hormone is released. Cells perform maintenance, fixing microscopic damage accumulated during the day. Wounds heal faster during sleep. Inflammation reduces. The immune system rallies. It's not just the body, either. The brain undergoes its own nightly detox. And here, we encounter one of the most extraordinary discoveries of the 21st century. In 2013, researchers at the University of Rochester identified a system previously unknown to science, the glymphatic system, a waste-clearing network that operates like a sewer system for the brain. During sleep, cerebrospinal fluid flows through channels surrounding blood vessels, washing through brain tissue and clearing away metabolic waste, including beta amyloid, a sticky protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. What's remarkable is how this system behaves. During wakefulness, the glymphatic system is sluggish, barely active. But during deep sleep, it ramps up dramatically. The brain cells themselves shrink slightly, opening up the space between them and allowing fluid to move more freely. It's as if the brain creates its own cleaning crew, but only when consciousness is off duty. This is not metaphor, it is literal cleaning, rinsing the brain of toxic byproducts that, if allowed to accumulate, can lead to neurodegenerative disease. Sleep, then, is not just rest, it is repair. It is sanitation, it is preservation, but it's not the only function. Sleep also strengthens us in ways we can't see, particularly in the mind. When we learn something new, whether it's a piano chord, a language phrase, or an emotional lesson from a hard conversation, our brain encodes that information through patterns of neural activity. But during the night, those patterns are replayed, strengthened, integrated. This is the basis of the memory consolidation theory of sleep. Studies have shown that people perform better on memory tests if they sleep after learning. Even a short nap can make a measurable difference. In one study, participants memorized pairs of words, half napped, half stayed awake. When tested later, the nappers significantly outperformed the others. The brain had continued studying, silently, while they slept. Different types of memories consolidate at different stages. Declarative memory, facts, names, dates, seems to benefit most from slow-wave sleep, the deep NREM stage. Procedural memory, how to ride a bike or play a song, seems to rely more on REM. Emotional memories also get sorted and regulated during sleep, possibly helping us manage difficult experiences, process grief, or gain insight. One might say, the brain dreams to remember. But this idea of memory replay isn't just theoretical. In studies with rodents, scientists recorded neural activity as the animals navigated mazes. Then, while the animals slept, those same patterns played out again, often at a faster rate, like the brain was replaying the day in a kind of time-lapse rehearsal. The brain was not resting, it was working. And yet, rest and work can coexist. This duality, renewal and processing, is what makes sleep such a paradox. We are still, and yet so much happens. But maybe sleep's purpose is even more basic. Maybe it's about energy. The energy conservation theory suggests that sleep evolved to reduce energy expenditure at times when it would be inefficient to be active. It makes sense. In the dark, vision is limited. Prey is harder to find. Predators more dangerous. By sleeping, we reduce our caloric needs and avoid unnecessary risk. From an evolutionary standpoint, this could be adaptive. Animals that conserved energy and avoided harm during vulnerable periods might survive longer and reproduce more successfully. Sleep could have been nature's way of programming inactivity during danger zones, especially for creatures with specific circadian rhythms. In humans, basal metabolic rate drops during sleep by around 10%. Core temperature decreases. Caloric expenditure falls. It's not a huge savings, but across evolutionary time, even modest advantages can shape behavior. Some have expanded on this to propose the adaptive inactivity theory, the idea that sleep evolved not for restoration per se, but to keep organisms out of harm's way during times of day when activity would be less fruitful or more dangerous, a sort of forced idleness to increase survival odds. This may explain the wide variety of sleep patterns in the animal kingdom. Predators like lions sleep up to 20 hours a day. Prey animals, like deer or horses, sleep much less, often in short bursts, and are more easily roused. Birds can sleep with one half of their brain at a time. Dolphins too. Sleep, then, is not one size fits all. It is tailored, optimized, adapted to each niche. Even in humans, sleep follows a circadian rhythm shaped by sunlight, and for good reason. Before electricity, staying up at night meant candlelight or firelight, both costly and dangerous. The night was for rest, the day for action, but for all of these theories, restoration, memory, energy conservation, adaptation, one thing becomes clear. Sleep is not optional. The body can survive for weeks without food, but without sleep, it deteriorates fast. We've already mentioned Randy Gardner, the teenager who set a record in 1964 by staying awake for 11 days. On the surface, he survived the ordeal with no lasting damage, but during the experiment, he experienced mood swings, paranoia, hallucinations, memory loss, and disorientation. By the 9th day, he couldn't complete simple arithmetic. His brain was falling apart in real time. Sleep deprivation studies since then have confirmed what Gardner's ordeal hinted at. Even moderate sleep loss affects nearly every system in the body. Reaction times slow. Risk of accidents increases. Appetite hormones become imbalanced. Ghrelin rises, leptin falls, making us crave sugar and carbs. The immune system weakens, inflammation rises, blood pressure creeps up. Chronic sleep loss has been linked to heart disease, diabetes, depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. The World Health Organization has classified night shift work as a probable carcinogen due to circadian disruption. And yet, we treat sleep as negotiable. We delay it, compress it, bypass it with caffeine, blue light, busy schedules, and glowing rectangles. We call it a sleep debt, a poetic term for something profoundly real. Like financial debt, sleep debt accumulates interest. Each hour missed adds to a physiological burden that can't be fully repaid. You can catch up a little by sleeping in, but not entirely. Some functions, like memory integration or hormone regulation, depend on sleep occurring at the right time, not just for the right duration. It's not just how much sleep you get, but when you get it. This is the principle behind chronobiology, the study of how timing affects biology. Humans are not just sleep-needing organisms, but rhythm-sensitive ones. Our sleep is governed by circadian rhythms, but also by ultradian rhythms, the roughly 90-minute cycles within sleep, and even infradian rhythms, like seasonal shifts in sleep need. Ignore these rhythms for too long, and the body pushes back. Jet lag is a mild version. Shift work is a harsher one. Mood disorders, hormonal imbalance, metabolic syndrome, all can be traced, in part, to disrupted sleep timing. And here lies one of the central ironies of modern life. We have never known more about the necessity of sleep, and yet perhaps never slept worse. But nature hasn't given up on us. The body is persistent. Even when we fight it, sleep eventually wins. Micro-sleeps, brief moments of unconsciousness lasting just a few seconds, can intrude during extreme fatigue. You may not even notice them, but for a split second, your brain shuts down. These have been implicated in countless accidents. From car crashes to industrial disasters, the body's way of demanding rest, whether we like it or not. And when we do finally give in, when the lights go off, the phone goes down, and the mind begins to soften, sleep returns with its full complexity. NREM, dreams, repairs, mysteries. Each night, this cycle plays out, unnoticed, uncelebrated. Essential. Sleep is not a void. It is not a blank space between days. It is a realm of active restoration, dynamic processing, and silent survival. It heals, it cleanses, it remembers, and above all, it insists. We can cheat it for a while, but we cannot replace it. Perhaps the better question isn't, why do we sleep? But how could we ever live without it? And within that sleep, something even stranger stirs. Dreams. We sleep, and then we dream. From the outside, it looks simple. The body still, the breath steady, the eyes closed. But inside the mind, something extraordinary begins to unfold. An experience that is deeply personal, often vivid, sometimes terrifying, sometimes beautiful, and always strangely difficult to explain. We call it dreaming, but what exactly is a dream? A dream is a form of conscious experience that arises during sleep, most often during a stage called REM, rapid eye movement, but not exclusively. It is a mental simulation that occurs without external input, crafted entirely from memory, emotion, and imagination. We see, hear, move, feel, all while lying completely motionless in bed. Dreams can be absurd or logical, surreal or grounded, emotionally intense or oddly detached. They can transport us to places we've never been or revisit the past in uncanny detail. They are immersive. They are convincing. And yet, upon waking, they vanish like fog under sunlight. Difficult to recall, difficult to grasp. It's a strange phenomenon, isn't it? To live through entire experiences, battles, romances, conversations, fears, only to forget them within minutes of waking. And still, we do it every night. So, when do we dream? The answer, surprisingly, is throughout the night. Dreams can occur during NREM and REM sleep, though they differ in quality. Early research once thought REM was the sole domain of dreams, but EEG and fMRI data now show that dreaming happens in both states. The difference lies in the type of dream. NREM dreams tend to be shorter, more thought-like, and rooted in daily experience, like thinking with your eyes closed. They are less emotional, more grounded, and often mundane. You might dream you're doing the laundry or going to work. These dreams dominate early in the night. REM dreams, on the other hand, are intense. They're the strange, cinematic ones, filled with emotional weight, bizarre plots, and visual flair. You're flying, falling, running from something, speaking to someone long gone. These are the dreams most people remember, and they become more frequent and elaborate as the night progresses. The architecture of the brain during REM sleep is astonishing. It closely resembles the waking brain. EEG patterns during REM show high-frequency, low-amplitude waves, almost identical to those of wakefulness. The brain is active, but in a strange, paradoxical way. The prefrontal cortex, which governs logic and self-awareness, is mostly off. Meanwhile, areas like the amygdala, which processes emotion, and the hippocampus, responsible for memory, are highly active. The visual cortex, which creates images from incoming light during the day, now generates imagery from within. This combination, low logic, high emotion, vivid visual input, creates the dream experience. You're in a world built from your own mind, but without your usual mental filters. That's why a talking cat on a bicycle doesn't feel strange in the moment. The part of your brain that would normally protest, "Wait, this is ridiculous," is offline. The surreal becomes believable, and yet the emotions feel real. The fear of falling, the warmth of love, the sting of shame. The brain treats dreams as emotionally valid experiences. Studies show that the amygdala, our emotional alarm system, is often more active during REM sleep than while awake. This might explain why nightmares feel so gripping, even though we're safe in bed. But what purpose do dreams serve? There are theories, of course. Some suggest dreams are the brain's way of processing emotion, particularly unresolved feelings from waking life. Others propose that dreams help with memory consolidation, not just storing facts, but connecting them creatively. Still, others believe dreams are a kind of internal rehearsal, a way to simulate challenges and practice responses in a risk-free environment. One compelling theory, proposed by Finnish neuroscientist Antti Revonsuo, is the threat simulation theory. According to this view, dreams evolved to help early humans rehearse danger. You dream of running from a predator or fighting an enemy because these were survival-relevant tasks. The dream becomes a virtual training ground, sharpening reflexes even while you sleep. Whether that's true or not, the emotional intensity of dreams suggests that something important is happening, even if we don't fully understand it. And then there's something even stranger: lucid dreaming. A lucid dream is a dream in which the dreamer becomes aware they are dreaming. You realize, mid-dream, this isn't real, and then you may be able to control it. Imagine being in a dream, recognizing it as a dream, and then choosing what to do. You decide to fly, you visit ancient Rome, you speak to a version of yourself. Lucid dreaming sits at the edge of consciousness and sleep, a rare hybrid state where the prefrontal cortex seems to come back online, restoring self-awareness. It doesn't happen to everyone, but it can be trained. Techniques include reality checks. Throughout the day, ask yourself if you're dreaming. Look at your hands. Try pushing a finger through your palm. If this habit carries over into a dream, you might notice something strange and become lucid. The mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, mild. Before sleeping, repeat a phrase like, "I will realize I'm dreaming." The intention increases awareness during REM. Wake back to bed, WBTB. Wake up after 5 to 6 hours of sleep. Stay awake briefly, then return to sleep. This increases the chance of entering REM consciously. Some lucid dreamers even use sleep journals, recording dreams each morning to increase recall. The more you remember your dreams, the more likely you are to notice patterns and become aware the next time you're dreaming. Lucid dreams can be profound, beautiful, even healing. Therapists have used them to treat recurring nightmares. Artists have drawn inspiration from them. Some people simply explore them for the thrill, like being the director of your own mental movie. But lucid dreaming isn't always perfect control. The dream is still alive. The unconscious still shapes the stage. Even in lucidity, the dreamer walks a line between control and surrender. The neuroscience of dreams is still evolving. Using fMRI and EEG, researchers have begun mapping the dreaming brain. In one study, scientists were able to predict dream content based on brain activity. Volunteers were woken during sleep and asked what they were dreaming about. Visual cortex activity patterns corresponded with the types of objects reported: faces, landscapes, motion. It was primitive dream reading, but it worked. Some have taken this further. using machine learning to reconstruct images from brain scans, creating blurred visual approximations of what the brain might be seeing during dreams. We are still far from reading dreams like books, but the door has opened, and yet, for all our science, dreams remain deeply personal. They reflect us, our fears, desires, memories, fragments of the day. They are shaped by our past, but sometimes offer glimpses of something new. They can disturb, they can delight, they can echo for days, and always they leave questions. Where do dreams come from? Are they messages, noise, simulations? Do they mean something, or are they just mental static? Science doesn't pretend to know for sure, but the brain does not waste energy. It does not maintain complex systems for no reason. Dreaming is expensive, metabolically speaking. It uses oxygen, glucose, neural power. If it were useless, evolution likely would have trimmed it away. Instead, dreaming is deeply embedded. Across cultures, across species, across time. Every night, the brain chooses to dream, and so we drift into the strange, fluid landscapes of the mind. Dreams are strange things. They fade quickly, but they linger. They slip from memory, yet stay in our moods. We wake confused, moved, shaken, or oddly enlightened, as if something meaningful happened, even if we can't quite say what. And so, for as long as humans have dreamed, we've asked the same question. What do they mean? We've already seen the brain at work during dreams. Electrical patterns, emotional centers firing, visual imagery created from memory. But beyond the neuroscience, we also bring ourselves into our dreams, our stories, fears, relationships, memories, regrets. They reflect more than random noise. They feel like mirrors. And interpreting those mirrors, that has been a human obsession for thousands of years. Let's start with one of the most famous names in dream history, Sigmund Freud. In 1900, Freud published The Interpretation of Dreams, a book that changed how the Western world thought about the unconscious. For Freud, dreams were the royal road to the unconscious, a glimpse into parts of ourselves hidden from waking awareness. He believed dreams were driven by wish fulfillment, repressed desires that we can't express directly during the day, often sexual or aggressive in nature. But these wishes don't appear clearly. Instead, the mind disguises them through symbols and condensations. A dream might seem innocuous on the surface. You're walking down a hallway, opening a door. But to Freud, these actions symbolized deeper, often taboo urges. The door wasn't just a door, it was a stand-in for something else. He divided the dream into two parts. The manifest content, the dream as remembered, the actual imagery and story. The latent content, the hidden meaning, the unconscious wish. To uncover the latent content, Freud developed a technique called free association, encouraging patients to talk freely about each element of the dream, revealing the underlying thoughts and conflicts. His approach was provocative, full of sexuality and suppressed instinct. And for many, it felt like overreach, as if Freud was imposing meanings onto dreams rather than discovering them. Still, his influence was enormous. He made dreaming something worthy of clinical attention, not just superstition, but psychology. Then came Carl Jung, Freud's student and eventual challenger. Jung agreed that dreams were windows into the unconscious, but he had a very different view of what lay beneath. Where Freud saw repressed desires, Jung saw symbolic messages from the psyche. Not disguised wishes, but insights from the deeper self. He believed the unconscious was not just personal, but collective, a reservoir of shared human experience, inherited across generations. In our dreams, he suggested, we tap into this collective unconscious through recurring archetypes, universal symbols like the shadow, the mother, the hero, or the wise old man. You might never have seen a particular image in waking life, and yet it appears in a dream with startling emotional power, because it taps into something ancient, embedded in the architecture of the mind. For Jung, dreams weren't puzzles to be solved or decoded. They were messages from the self, part of a process he called individuation, the lifelong integration of conscious and unconscious elements of the psyche. Dreams were guiding forces, not obstacles. In contrast to Freud's clinical couch and interpretation through theory, Jung's approach was more exploratory, almost mystical. He encouraged dream journaling, active imagination, and symbol analysis, not as a diagnostic tool, but as a path toward wholeness. Where Freud saw dreams as products of instinct, Jung saw them as myth. Modern psychology, however, has largely moved beyond the idea of universal dream dictionaries or symbolic decoding. Today, dreams are studied through the lenses of neuroscience, cognitive science, and emotional processing. One major perspective is that dreams are a form of memory processing, a way for the brain to sort, consolidate, and integrate new experiences. Rather than symbols, dreams are reconstructions, fragments of thoughts, recent events, and emotional residues mixed together into loosely structured narratives. In this view, the brain isn't hiding something in the dream, it's just trying to make sense of recent information. The hippocampus, which plays a central role in memory formation, remains active during sleep. It replays patterns, strengthens connections, and files away what matters. Another major theory focuses on emotional regulation. Studies have shown that people who are deprived of REM sleep, the stage where most vivid dreams occur, tend to have greater difficulty processing emotional memories. REM may help us depotentiate emotional charge, softening the impact of painful memories without erasing them. Dreams, then, might be a kind of overnight therapy. The emotional brain plays out scenarios, sometimes strange, sometimes painful, in a low-stakes environment. By morning, the feelings have been digested, transformed, or at least acknowledged. One fascinating modern view comes from the continuity hypothesis, the idea that dreams reflect the concerns of our waking lives. We dream about what we think about, and that makes sense. In studies where participants are asked to keep dream journals, recurring themes often match their real-world anxieties, relationships, goals, or even upcoming events. This brings us to one of the most influential dream researchers in modern times, G. William Domhoff. Domhoff analysed thousands of dream reports over decades, looking for statistical patterns in dream content. His work led to the creation of the Hall/van der Castle system, a coding method that quantifies what appears in dreams, people, emotions, actions, settings. What Domhoff found was surprising in its consistency. Across cultures, people tend to dream about social interactions, talking, arguing, affection, familiar people, family, friends, co-workers, common settings, houses, schools, streets. Emotions, mostly negative, anxiety, confusion, fear. He also noted that dreams reflect gender and cultural differences. For example, men's dreams tend to include more aggression and unfamiliar characters. Women's dreams often include more conversation and personal relationships. These findings support the idea that dreams reflect our social and emotional concerns, rather than being random. Still, randomness remains a possibility. Some researchers argue that dreams are simply a byproduct of neural activity during sleep, especially in REM, when the brain is highly active but disconnected from sensory input. This is the activation synthesis theory proposed by Hobson and McCarley in the 1970s. According to their model, dreams are the brain's attempt to make sense of random firing from the brainstem. The cortex receives a stream of fragmented signals and tries to weave them into a coherent story, which becomes the dream. In this view, dreams don't mean anything in the traditional sense. They're like mental static, creative, sometimes profound, but not purposeful. It's a compelling idea and a sobering one. Maybe dreams aren't messages, maybe they're mosaics built from noise. But then again, even noise can have beauty. Even randomness can stir insight. Even chaos can produce a kind of pattern. So, are dreams meaningful? The scientific answer is cautious. They are shaped by memory, coloured by emotion, influenced by waking concerns. But whether they carry deeper meaning, that is a more personal question. Some dreams change lives. Some reveal patterns we hadn't noticed. Some connect dots we couldn't quite reach while awake. And some just confuse us, then fade. Maybe that's the point. Not to interpret every dream like a puzzle, but to notice them, to reflect on them, to let them inform, not define. We are dreaming creatures, and dreams, for all their strangeness, are ours. They are made of us. From Freud's repressed urges to Jung's universal archetypes, from memory to metaphor, from neuroscience to myth. Dreams remain open. And perhaps that's what gives them power. They are not blueprints. They are invitations to look inward, to explore, to wonder. For most of us, sleep is something we slip into without thinking. We close our eyes, the world fades, and we fall gently into unconsciousness. But for many, sleep is not so simple. It becomes elusive or unpredictable or even frightening. Sleep, as natural as it is, can be disrupted in ways that reshape how we live and how we dream. These disruptions are not just nuisances. They offer a window into the complexity of consciousness and how delicately balanced the sleeping brain must be to function smoothly. Let's begin with the most common and widespread of these disruptions: insomnia. Insomnia isn't just a bad night's sleep. It's a persistent difficulty either falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking too early, despite having the opportunity to rest. It can be short-term, triggered by stress, grief, or anxiety, or it can be chronic, lasting months or years. Roughly 10 to 15% of adults experience chronic insomnia. It's the most common sleep disorder in the world, and it doesn't just make people tired. It affects memory, mood, focus, immune function. Insomnia often leads to, and is worsened by, anxiety about not sleeping. The more one worries about not sleeping, the more elusive sleep becomes. Treatment has shifted in recent years. Rather than relying on sedative medications which can interfere with natural sleep architecture, many doctors now recommend cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, a method that combines sleep scheduling, mental reconditioning, and relaxation strategies. It's effective, and it works without disrupting the very rhythms sleep depends on. Then there's the opposite problem, not the inability to sleep, but the inability to stay awake. That brings us to narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is a rare neurological disorder that affects the brain's ability to regulate sleep-wake cycles. People with narcolepsy may feel overwhelming daytime sleepiness and can fall asleep suddenly, even in the middle of a conversation. These sleep attacks are not voluntary. They can happen at work, during meals, or while driving. One of the strangest features of narcolepsy is the sudden intrusion of REM sleep, the dream stage, into waking life. In healthy sleep, REM arrives after about 90 minutes. In narcolepsy, it can occur almost instantly. This leads to another symptom, cataplexy, a sudden loss of muscle control triggered by emotion, especially laughter or surprise. The person remains conscious, but their muscles become weak or give out entirely. It's as if a switch has flipped, sending the body into a dreamlike paralysis. Narcolepsy is often caused by a lack of hypocretin, a neurotransmitter that regulates arousal and wakefulness. This deficiency may be linked to autoimmune factors, the body mistakenly attacking its own brain cells. Despite being rare, affecting roughly 1 in 2,000 people, narcolepsy gives us a profound clue. Sleep and wakefulness are not opposites. They are not light switches, they are gradients, and sometimes the lines blur. Other disorders blur those lines even further. Consider the phenomenon of parasomnias, unusual behaviors that occur during sleep. One of the most well-known is sleepwalking. A person rises from bed, eyes open but unseeing. They may walk, move objects, even leave the house, all while technically asleep. They have no memory of it upon waking. Sleepwalking occurs during deep NREM sleep, typically early in the night. It's more common in children but can persist into adulthood, especially under stress or sleep deprivation. Its cousin is the night terror, a sudden outburst of fear often accompanied by screaming, sweating, and rapid heart rate. Unlike nightmares, which occur during REM and are often remembered, night terrors arise from NREM stage 3, and the sleeper may have no recollection at all. They sit up, terrified, disoriented, and then fall back into sleep, leaving everyone else awake and rattled. Other parasomnias include sleep eating, sleep talking, sexsomnia, initiating sexual behavior while asleep, and exploding head syndrome, a startling condition in which the sleeper hears a loud bang or crashing noise just before sleep onset, though no sound actually occurred. All of these suggest that sleep is not always total. Parts of the brain can remain active, muscles can move, behaviors can emerge. But perhaps the most unsettling parasomnia is REM sleep behavior disorder, RBD. Normally, during REM sleep, the body is paralyzed, a protective measure that prevents us from acting out our dreams. This is known as REM atonia. But in RBD, that paralysis fails. The result, the dreamer moves. They may talk, shout, flail, punch, or leap from bed, responding to dream content as if it were real. And these dreams are often intense: fights, chases, or attacks. Injuries are not uncommon, to the dreamer or to their bed partner. RBD is most common in older adults, especially men over 50, and can be an early sign of neurodegenerative disease, particularly Parkinson's or Lewy body dementia. In fact, studies suggest that up to 80% of people with RBD go on to develop one of these conditions within a decade. That makes REM sleep behavior disorder more than a curiosity. It's a neurological signal, a glimpse into how deeply REM sleep connects to motor systems, emotion, and long-term brain health. Then there are nightmares, those vivid dreams that wake us with fear, panic, or unease. Nightmares are common in children, but many adults experience them too, especially during times of stress, trauma, or grief. They occur during REM sleep, often late in the night, and can be triggered by medications, sleep deprivation, or mental health conditions like PTSD. In PTSD, the nightmares often replay traumatic events, nearly unchanged. But even in the general population, nightmares often reflect emotional overload. The brain, attempting to process difficult experiences, produces dream scenarios that mirror the emotional tone, even if the events themselves are symbolic. Nightmares can be chronic, and when they are, they affect more than just sleep. They create fear of sleep, disrupting the entire rhythm of rest. One of the most promising treatments for chronic nightmares is image rehearsal therapy, IRT, a cognitive technique where the dreamer rewrites the nightmare while awake, changing the ending and rehearses it repeatedly. This method has been shown to reduce both the frequency and intensity of nightmares, especially in PTSD patients. It's a reminder that the dreaming brain can be influenced, not just by internal processes, but by conscious intention. And then, there is one of the most mysterious sleep experiences of all: sleep paralysis. It begins with waking. You become aware of your surroundings. You can see the room. You know you're in bed, but you cannot move. The body remains frozen in REM atonia, but the mind has returned. This state can last seconds or minutes, and often it's accompanied by hallucinations, a sense of presence, a feeling of pressure on the chest, even visual or auditory phenomena. Many people describe a shadowy figure, a sense of dread, or the belief that something is in the room. It is terrifying. Throughout history, sleep paralysis has been explained through folklore: demons, spirits, alien abductions. The infamous old hag legend in Newfoundland, the incubus in European mythology, the kanashibari in Japanese culture. Each culture developed its own explanation for the same experience, but science offers another. During REM sleep, the brain is dreaming. If we wake up while the body is still paralyzed, and while fragments of dream imagery bleed into waking perception, we get a hybrid state. Dream logic meets conscious awareness. The brain tries to make sense of conflicting signals, and the result is a surreal, often frightening experience. Sleep paralysis affects an estimated 8% of the general population, higher among students, shift workers, and those with disrupted sleep. It's not dangerous, but in the moment, it feels very real. And it raises an unsettling question. Where does dreaming end and consciousness begin? Because sleep disorders, from insomnia to sleepwalking to hallucinations, all show us the same thing: that the boundaries between sleeping, dreaming, and waking are not solid walls. They are more like curtains, thin, shifting, permeable. Sometimes a part of the brain wakes up before the rest. Sometimes a dream steps too far into the body. Sometimes the conscious mind lingers too long in the dark. These disruptions, while distressing, also offer insight. They show us that sleep is not just unconsciousness. It's a dance, a rhythm, a careful coordination of systems. And when those systems go off-beat, the line between real and imagined starts to blur. We sleep, we dream, and sometimes we lose the thread. But even in those moments, the body remembers. The brain recalibrates, and night after night it tries again to enter the strange, soft world of sleep and navigate its mysterious terrain. Long before science traced brain waves, before EEG machines, before REM and serotonin and theories of memory consolidation, humans dreamed, and they remembered. They remembered the dreams that felt like warnings, the dreams that brought messages from ancestors, the dreams that stirred something sacred. Long before dreams were medical, they were mythical. Throughout history, across continents and languages, people have looked to dreams not as private quirks of the mind, but as bridges between the living and the dead, between the earthly and the divine, between the self and something larger. Dreams were not just symptoms, they were messages. Let's begin in the ancient world. In ancient Mesopotamia, dreams were taken seriously as signs from the gods. Kings and priests often kept dream interpreters in their courts, trained to read the symbols and omens that visited in sleep. One of the earliest written texts in history, the Epic of Gilgamesh, features a series of dreams that foretell the hero's fate. These were not literary flourishes. They were expressions of a cultural worldview. Dreams were understood as communications from higher powers, meant to guide or warn. The same was true in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians recorded dreams on papyrus scrolls and stone tablets, creating early versions of dream dictionaries. One such record, the Ramesside Dream Book, dating back over 3,000 years, lists dream symbols alongside interpretations. Dreaming of drinking warm beer, that meant something good. Dreaming of losing teeth, that too had meaning, often ominous. But dreams weren't just interpreted, they were invoked. In many ancient traditions, people practiced dream incubation, intentionally seeking out dreams for guidance or healing. This was particularly developed in ancient Greece. In Greece, dreams were sacred territory. They belonged to the gods. And among the gods, one name was whispered by those who sought healing through sleep. Asclepius, the god of medicine. His temples, known as Asclepians, became centers for dream healing. Pilgrims would travel for days or weeks to reach these sanctuaries. Once there, they would purify themselves through fasting, prayer, or ritual cleansing, and then they would enter the abaton, a dark chamber where they would sleep overnight, hoping to receive a dream from the god. These dreams were not ordinary. They were believed to be divine prescriptions, offering cures, instructions, or symbolic messages that priests would later interpret. This practice, known as incubation, wasn't marginal. It was widespread, respected, and deeply integrated into ancient Greek medicine and spirituality. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, was influenced by these traditions, even as he moved toward more empirical views of the body. To the Greeks, there was no hard boundary between medicine, sleep, and the divine. Dreams were medicine. Dreams were a form of diagnosis, and not just for healing, but for prophecy. In the ancient world, many rulers claimed to have received prophetic dreams, messages foretelling war, conquest, disaster, or divine approval. In the Hebrew Bible, dreams are central to the narratives of Joseph and Daniel, both of whom interpret royal dreams with profound political consequences. Pharaoh dreams of fat cows and thin cows, a vision of famine and abundance. Nebuchadnezzar dreams of a great statue made of gold, silver, bronze, and clay, a prophecy of empires. In both cases, the dreams are not random. They are delivered, and they require an interpreter, someone with divine favor and wisdom. Even in early Christianity and Islam, dreams played important roles. Saints reported visions of Christ or the Virgin Mary during sleep. Muhammad, according to Islamic tradition, received some of his earliest spiritual insights in dreams and dreamlike states. Dreams in these contexts were not psychological, they were revelations. But dream reverence wasn't limited to the ancient Near East or Mediterranean. Across the globe, indigenous cultures have long held dreams as integral to spiritual life, identity, and even cosmology. Perhaps the most famous example is the Aboriginal peoples of Australia and their concept of the dreaming, sometimes called dream time, though that translation is imperfect. The dreaming is not just a collection of stories or dreams, it is a cosmic layer of reality, a sacred time when ancestral beings shaped the land, created life, and set the laws of existence. Though called dreaming, it is not confined to sleep. It is an eternal present, accessible through ceremony, song, and, yes, sleep dreams. In this worldview, dreams can connect a person with their totemic ancestors, offer guidance for hunting or healing, or help maintain the sacred bonds between land, people, and spirit. Aboriginal art, music, and storytelling are often direct expressions of this relationship, and dreams are a source of authority, not just imagination. In many Native American tribes, dreams are also sacred. The Ojibwe people, for example, are credited with the creation of the dream catcher, a talisman meant to filter dreams, allowing the good to pass through and the bad to be caught in the web. For many tribes, dreams are the domain of spirit communication. Shamans and medicine people often enter altered states, including dream states, to receive visions, healing techniques, or messages for the tribe. In some Amazonian cultures, the dream world is viewed as just as real as the waking world, sometimes more so. Shamans travel through dreams, engaging with spirits, ancestors, or plant beings. The boundary between dreaming and vision is fluid. Across the Arctic, in Inuit cultures, dreams may reveal hunting success, personal taboos, or omens. The dead may appear with advice or warnings. Among the Zulu of southern Africa, dreams are often seen as ancestral conversations, a form of communication with the dead, guiding the living. Again and again, we see the same pattern. Dreams are not just dreams. They are events. Spiritual, social, practical, and beyond individual experiences, entire societies shaped how sleep and dreams were understood. In medieval Europe, where sleep was often segmented into two parts, first sleep and second sleep, the time between those segments was sometimes used for dream reflection, prayer, or even writing. Dreams could be taken as signs from God or temptations from the devil, their interpretation coloured by religious doctrine. In China, traditional medicine has long considered dreams to reflect the balance of qi, the body's life force, and the relationship between internal organs. Dream content could be diagnostic, indicating imbalance or disease. Taoist monks also engaged in dream cultivation, training themselves to enter lucid dream states for spiritual exploration. In Tibet, Buddhist practitioners developed dream yoga, a set of techniques for becoming lucid in dreams and using that awareness to practice mindfulness, compassion, and insight. In these traditions, dreams are part of the path to enlightenment, not distractions, but tools. In many Islamic cultures, dreams remain deeply respected. The Ilm al-Ruya, the science of dream interpretation, is a respected tradition, drawing on centuries of scholarship, scripture, and symbolic interpretation. In some communities, people still consult imams or elders to interpret troubling or auspicious dreams. So, what does all this tell us? That dreaming and its meanings are not fixed. They are cultural, shaped by beliefs, values, cosmologies. Where one society sees neurons firing randomly, another sees ancestral voices. Where one sees metaphor, another sees prophecy. And perhaps both are true in their own way, because meaning is not just found, it is made. We shape our relationship to dreams by how we talk about them, reflect on them, and integrate them into waking life. And even in our modern, secular, scientific world, dreams still touch something deep. We may know the mechanics, the REM cycles, the amygdala activation, the memory processing, but when we wake from a dream that felt real, when we carry the mood of it for hours, when we sense something important slipped through our fingers in the night, we are once again connected to something older than science, to wonder. From temples and vision quests to neuroscience labs and sleep trackers, we have never stopped trying to understand what happens when we close our eyes. And through every lens, spiritual, cultural, biological, we find that dreaming is more than a mental event. It is a story, it is a message, it is a mirror, one shaped by memory and by myth. For most of human history, dreams were private things. unrecordable, unverifiable. A landscape only the dreamer could visit and only memory could retrieve. They rose in the night, danced across the mind, and disappeared by morning, leaving behind fragments, feelings, or riddles. But they were ultimately out of reach, until now. Because today, for the first time in human history, we're learning to watch the dreamer dream, not metaphorically, not poetically, but literally, with machines, scanners, and code. We are entering a new frontier, the science of dreaming, as seen through the lens of modern technology. Let's begin with the tools that have cracked open the sleeping mind. fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, and EEG, the electroencephalogram. EEG has been used for decades to monitor sleep stages. It captures the electrical activity of the brain, the waves that mark the descent into deep sleep, the bursts of REM, the transitions between stages. But EEG lacks precision. It's like listening to an orchestra from outside the concert hall. fMRI, on the other hand, offers something closer to a seat in the balcony. It maps blood flow, showing which brain areas are active and when. And with it, scientists have begun to peer inside the dream itself. One of the most astonishing breakthroughs came in 2013 at the ATR Computational Neuroscience Laboratories in Kyoto, Japan. Researchers led by neuroscientist Yukiyasu Kamitani scanned the brains of sleeping volunteers using fMRI, waking them during early dream phases to ask what they had just seen. A car, one might say, a face, a house, water. The team then used machine learning to link these dream reports to fMRI patterns, building a database of brain activity associated with specific visual imagery. Eventually, the system could predict dream content with up to 60% accuracy just by analysing brain scans. It was the first step toward dream decoding, translating the private language of sleep into visible data. A few years later, researchers at UC Berkeley took it even further. They showed participants movie trailers while scanning their brains. Using machine learning algorithms, they reconstructed visual representations of what the brain was seeing, blurry, ghost-like images that resembled the original clips. Not perfectly, but recognizably. The implication? If we can reconstruct waking images from brain activity, could we one day reconstruct dreams? This is no longer science fiction. It's neuroscience, slowly catching up to the dreamer. And it's not just passive observation. Technology is now reaching into sleep to influence it, and even shape dreams. At the MIT Media Lab, researchers developed a device called Dormio, a wearable that monitors the hypnagogic state, that transitional phase between wakefulness and sleep, when thoughts become dreamlike, but consciousness lingers. Dormio listens for cues that the wearer is entering this state, then plays audio prompts, like "remember a tree," to influence the content of early dreams. Later, the user is woken and asked to report what they experienced. The results? The tree appears, sometimes transformed, sometimes multiplied. But the prompt makes its way into the dream. This technique is called targeted dream incubation, and it opens a doorway to guided dreaming. A way to seed the mind with imagery, themes, or problems, and see what the sleeping brain creates. Other researchers have explored olfactory stimulation, releasing specific scents during REM to see if they influence dream content. Pleasant smells, like roses, tend to produce more positive dreams. Unpleasant ones, like rotten eggs, not so much. Meanwhile, brain stimulation technologies, like TACS, transcranial alternating current stimulation, have been tested to increase the likelihood of lucid dreaming. In one experiment, applying a mild electric current to the prefrontal cortex during a REM increased self-awareness in the dream, allowing participants to realize they were dreaming. These are early experiments, small studies, delicate results, but they point toward a future where dreams are no longer beyond reach, but malleable, and the tools are multiplying. Wearable technology has ushered in a new era of sleep tracking. Smartwatches, rings, headbands, apps. Many claim to detect sleep stages, monitor REM, track heart rate variability, and even wake you during lighter sleep to minimize grogginess. Devices like the Oura Ring, Fitbit, and Apple Watch have put sleep metrics in the hands, or on the fingers, of millions. Some devices now offer smart alarms tied to circadian rhythms or ambient soundscapes tailored to brainwave patterns. Others deliver gentle vibrations to nudge the user into lucid dreams. Companies like Neurone and iBand Plus have explored using light, sound, or vibration cues during REM to signal the dreamer without fully waking them. The idea is to inject awareness into the dream, to allow the sleeper to realize this is not real. It's the commercialization of lucidity, a world where dreams are a kind of interactive experience, no longer passive but participatory. And it raises a tantalizing possibility. What if we could not only influence dreams, but record them, share them, replay them? Could dreams become a form of media? It may sound fantastical, but already researchers are building dream journals powered by AI. Apps are being designed to transcribe and categorize verbal dream reports, using natural language processing to detect common themes, symbols, or emotional tones. Some even compare dreams across users, looking for collective patterns. In theory, if dream content could be decoded with sufficient resolution through EEG, fMRI, or other methods, we might one day create visual reconstructions of dreams. Imagine a future where you wake, review your dreams in video form, edit them, share them with friends, like surreal vlogs from the unconscious mind. And yet, this future carries ethical weight. Dreams are among the most private experiences we have. They reflect not just memory, but fantasy, fear, desire, often in raw, unfiltered form. To record or analyze them raises questions. Who owns a dream? Should others be allowed to access it? Can dreams be used in court, in therapy, in advertising? Could they be hacked, manipulated, monetized? These are no longer theoretical questions. As brain-computer interfaces evolve, with companies like Neuralink developing direct links between brain and machine, the sanctity of the mind becomes a topic of law, ethics, and civil rights. Mental privacy may become one of the great issues of the 21st century, and dreams may be at the center of it. At the same time, dreams hold creative potential unlike anything else. Many artists, writers, and scientists have credited dreams with breakthroughs. Dmitri Mendeleev reportedly saw the periodic table in a dream. Mary Shelley conceived Frankenstein from a dreamlike vision. Paul McCartney heard the melody for Yesterday in his sleep. Salvador Dali practiced hypnagogic dreaming, holding a key in hand while napping. When he dropped it, he'd wake and sketch the images still hanging in his mind. As technology advances, we may harness dreams not only for data, but for creativity. Dream labs may become part of the creative process, where writers seed story prompts into sleep, or musicians improvise with fragments of dream melodies. And as neuroscience maps the dreaming brain in finer detail, we may discover new ways to understand consciousness itself, because dreaming is not just sleep. It is an altered state, where the self dissolves, reforms, and re-examines. Studying dreams may help us answer deeper questions. What is the mind when it is unbound by the body? What is the self when logic is offline? Are dreams a simulation, a rehearsal, a reflection, or are they something else entirely? We are on the threshold. We have gone from dream interpretation to dream observation to dream modification, and now, possibly, to dream externalization. A time may come when our dreams can be played like films, when our sleeping mind becomes a canvas, not just for ourselves, but for others to view. A future where sleep is no longer private, but shared. And as with all frontiers, the challenge will be to balance knowledge with care, to explore without exploiting, to illuminate without invading. Because even as science advances, the dream still belongs first and foremost to the dreamer. When we sleep, where do we go? It's a question that slips in quietly, between dreams, between breaths, as if whispered by the night itself. Because while the body lies still, something continues. A flicker of awareness, a feeling, a presence behind the dream. Even if we don't remember it, even if it fades before morning, we sense it. So, what is this thing we call consciousness when we're asleep? Is it still us? Is it real? Is it a version of waking life, or something entirely different? Science defines consciousness as the state of being aware of and able to think about oneself and the environment. It includes perception, attention, thought, emotion, and self-awareness. It is, in many ways, what we believe makes us, us. But during sleep, this system doesn't switch off, not completely. Consciousness shifts, it bends, it fragments and reforms. In deep NREM sleep, especially during slow-wave phases, consciousness often disappears altogether. There is no experience, or if there is, it is faint, formless. We may wake and say we had no dreams, though studies show that some brain activity continues. The self, in these stages, dissolves almost entirely. But in REM sleep, something stranger happens. Consciousness returns, but in altered form. We dream, we feel, we think. Sometimes we're aware of ourselves, sometimes we're not. And in lucid dreams, the dreamer knows they are dreaming. They may even remember waking life. In those moments, consciousness exists, but unbound by physics, identity, or narrative. So, is that consciousness? Is that you? This brings us to a deeper, older question. What is the self during sleep? In waking life, we anchor our identity in continuity. I was me yesterday. I am me today. I remember, I plan, I think, therefore I am. But in sleep, that continuity breaks. We become other people. We live other lives. We forget our name, our past, our intentions. A dream can place you in a city you've never seen, doing things you've never done, and yet you simply are. The dream you feels real, even if the circumstances are strange. Sometimes the self remains centered. You dream from your own perspective. Other times, you watch from above, as if your consciousness has become a camera. And sometimes there is no you at all, just images, impressions, a drifting presence. In this way, sleep may offer not just a rest from waking life, but a pause from the illusion of continuity. The boundaries of identity soften, the ego loosens its grip, and something quieter takes its place. But could dreams be more than just altered consciousness? Could they be simulations? This idea that dreams are simulations of reality is gaining traction in both science and philosophy. Cognitive scientists like Antti Revonsuo have argued that dreaming is essentially a virtual reality system created by the brain. In his threat simulation theory, dreams evolved as a biological tool to rehearse dangerous or emotionally charged situations. You dream of running from danger, fighting off attackers, losing someone you love. And in doing so, you prepare your nervous system for real threats, real loss. The emotions are real, the reactions are real, the events are imagined. This aligns with what we now know about REM sleep. The brain is highly active. Visual centers light up. The body remains paralyzed, a safety measure against enacting the simulation. Dreaming, in this view, is not nonsense. It is adaptive training, the brain's built-in simulator. But others ask a more radical question. If dreams can simulate reality so convincingly, what guarantee do we have that waking life is not also a simulation? This is not a modern question. In the 17th century, philosopher René Descartes asked, "How can I be sure I'm not dreaming right now?" He observed that in dreams, we often mistake illusions for reality. We believe we're awake until we wake up. So what, he wondered, if all of life were a kind of dream, and we had simply never woken up? This idea became known as Descartes' dream argument. It was part of his larger search for certainty. His conclusion, of course, was cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Even if he was dreaming, even if everything was false, the fact that he doubted, the fact that he thought, proved that some aspect of his mind existed. But the unsettling question remains, if we can't distinguish a dream while inside it, how can we ever be sure we're awake? Modern philosophers and physicists have taken this idea further. Some suggest that consciousness itself may be trapped in a kind of simulation, not metaphorically, but literally. The simulation hypothesis, popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom, proposes that an advanced civilization could one day simulate entire universes. populated with conscious beings who don't know they're simulated. If such simulations are possible, and if civilizations tend to create them, then statistically we are more likely to be inside one of those simulations than in base reality. It's a thought experiment, one that borders on science fiction. But it hinges on the same principle Descartes raised. Can we ever truly trust our perception of reality? Dreams, vivid, emotional, and convincing, remind us just how fragile that trust can be. And this brings us to the thinnest of boundaries, the line between dream and reality. Waking from a dream can feel like returning from a journey, sometimes gentle, sometimes jarring. There's often a moment just before full awareness where the two worlds blur. You're in bed, but also in the forest. You hear birds, but also voices from the dream. You know you're awake, but part of you still clings to the dream logic. This threshold, the moment of crossing, is a profound one. It shows us that consciousness isn't binary. We don't simply switch from off to on. We pass through layers. Sleep, dreaming, lucid dreaming, hypnagogia, waking. These are not rooms, but shades of light, and at each boundary, the sense of self flickers. Sometimes, in a dream, you realize you're dreaming, but instead of waking, you stay. You explore. You ask questions. You test the limits of the dream world, and then you wake and wonder, what does that say about consciousness? What does it say about free will if you could shape the dream? What does it say about identity if you were so different in that world? These are not just thought experiments. They are experiences, available every night in sleep, and they lead us to an even deeper question. What if dreaming is not the exception, but the rule? What if waking life is simply another kind of dream? More stable, more shared, more grounded in rules, but still shaped by perception, memory, emotion. The Buddhist tradition has long taught this perspective. In Tibetan dream yoga, practitioners are trained to see both dreams and waking life as illusions. Not meaningless, but impermanent. The goal is not to escape the dream, but to wake up within it, to recognize the nature of the mind, and move through both worlds with awareness and compassion. In that view, sleep becomes a teacher, and the dream becomes a metaphor for life itself. So when we ask, what is consciousness during sleep? We are really asking, what am I when I am not myself? When memory fails, when the body disappears, when logic sleeps, when the I dissolves, and yet something remains, a witness, a presence, a flicker behind the dream. Perhaps in sleep we learn that the self is not fixed, that it can take other forms, other names, other stories, and perhaps that realization doesn't weaken our sense of identity, but deepens it, because to be conscious, in sleep or in waking, is to participate in something vast, mysterious, and still unfolding. Sleep feels human, intimate, familiar, but we are far from alone in it. Sleep is not a luxury of consciousness. It is a necessity of life, and it's been with us far longer than thought or language or civilization. Before humans slept under stars or blankets, before primates swung in trees or mammals burrowed underground, sleep was already embedded in the biology of life, and not just in mammals. Fish sleep, reptiles sleep, birds sleep, insects, perhaps sleep. Even organisms without brains, like jellyfish, enter states resembling sleep. Sleep is ancient, sleep is universal, but sleep is also diverse. It takes many forms, and each species, shaped by its environment, its dangers, its needs, has evolved its own relationship with rest. Let's begin in the ocean with one of the most fascinating cases, the dolphin. Dolphins, like all mammals, need to breathe air. But unlike us, they cannot breathe automatically while unconscious. If a dolphin were to fall into full bilateral sleep, both brain hemispheres shut down, it would stop surfacing to breathe and drown. So, evolution devised a solution: unihemispheric sleep. One half of the dolphin's brain sleeps at a time, while the other remains alert. The eye opposite the sleeping hemisphere often closes, while the other stays open. This allows the dolphin to swim slowly, surface to breathe, and stay partially aware of its surroundings, even while resting. After a period, the hemispheres switch. One sleeps, one wakes. This isn't a rare behavior, it's the norm. Many aquatic mammals, including whales and porpoises, exhibit similar patterns. It's not luxury, it's survival, but the ocean doesn't have a monopoly on clever sleep. Birds also engage in unihemispheric sleep, and for similar reasons. Migratory birds have been recorded sleeping mid-flight. Swifts, for example, can remain airborne for months, feeding, mating, and sleeping on the wing. How? By briefly resting one hemisphere of the brain at a time. In one study, great frigate birds were tracked with EEG devices during multi-day flights over the ocean. Researchers found that the birds slept in short bursts, just a few seconds at a time, while still gliding. Most of this was unihemispheric, with one eye open. In large flocks, birds also use this technique to guard against predators. The birds on the edge of the group often sleep with one eye open, scanning for danger, while the inner birds sleep with both hemispheres, a rotating watch system built into the brain. Not all animals need such split vigilance. Land mammals tend to sleep more conventionally. But even here, variation is dramatic. Elephants, for instance, are famously sleep-deprived. Despite their massive brains, they sleep as little as 2 hours a day, often while standing. In the wild, they may go days without sleep, travelling long distances, and they experience very little REM sleep, raising questions about what REM is for and how critical it is. Giraffes, too, sleep minimally, often in short bursts totaling less than 2 hours per day. Meanwhile, cats, both domestic and wild, can sleep up to 16 hours or more. Lions may sleep 20 hours a day, conserving energy between hunts. That's a broad spectrum, from nearly sleepless to nearly unconscious. What dictates the difference? Largely, it's about risk and energy. Prey animals sleep lightly and briefly. Predators sleep deeply and long. Those with fewer natural threats can afford the vulnerability. Those always in danger must rest with caution. But do these animals dream? That question is harder to answer. But there's evidence, clues. In 2001, researchers at MIT studied rats running through mazes while connected to electrodes. During sleep, the same neural firing patterns occurred in the same order as when the rats were awake and navigating. It was as if the rat were replaying the maze in its dreams. Even more striking, the firing patterns were so distinct that researchers could tell where the rat was in the dream maze just by watching the brain activity. This is the closest we've come to seeing a dream in a non-human animal, and rats aren't alone. Dogs, during REM sleep, often twitch, paddle their legs, whimper, or growl. Anyone with a sleeping dog has seen it, the paws moving, the nose twitching, the occasional bark. Researchers believe dogs, like humans, dream during REM. They may replay memories of walks, smells, play, or food. The content is unknown, of course, but the behavior and the neurological signals suggest that they dream. In fact, most mammals studied so far exhibit REM sleep, including cats, rats, pigs, and primates. And with REM comes the likelihood of dreaming. What about other branches of life? Reptiles, for a long time, were believed not to experience REM. Their sleep was thought to be simpler. But in 2016, researchers studying the Australian bearded dragon found something surprising. Using brain imaging, they identified 2 distinct sleep states, one of which shared features with REM. The dragons cycled between these states every 80 seconds, a rapid version of the mammalian sleep cycle. This discovery suggests that REM-like sleep may be much older than we thought, possibly dating back to a common ancestor of mammals and reptiles over 300 million years ago. It also raises the possibility that dreaming is not a recent adaptation, but an ancient one. And what about birds? Birds not only experience REM, but they may also dream in song. In one study, zebra finches were recorded while awake, singing their learned songs. Then, during REM sleep, researchers observed similar neural patterns, as if the bird were silently rehearsing its melody. Juvenile birds showed even stronger rehearsal patterns, suggesting that dreams may aid learning just as they do in humans. But how far does sleep reach? What about insects? They don't have brains like ours. They lack a cerebral cortex. But even so, some show signs of sleep. Fruit flies, for instance, enter periods of inactivity. Their brain activity changes. They become less responsive to stimuli. They even exhibit sleep rebound. If deprived of rest, they sleep more later. All of this meets the criteria for sleep. What they experience, if anything, during that state is unknown. There is no direct evidence of dreaming in insects, but the idea that a fly may enter a dreamlike state is oddly humbling. It reminds us that sleep, and perhaps dreaming, may not be confined to mammals or vertebrates. It may be a universal strategy evolved in many forms. So how did REM sleep evolve? That question is still open. Some researchers suggest that REM, with its active brain state and temporary paralysis, may have originated as a refinement of older sleep stages, allowing for more sophisticated memory processing or emotional regulation. Others believe it may have emerged multiple times in different lineages, a case of convergent evolution where similar challenges led to similar solutions. And some ask, is REM even necessary? As we've seen, some animals, like dolphins or elephants, have very little REM, yet function well. But even here, the picture is unclear. Some of these animals may engage in micro-REM, brief episodes that fulfill essential functions in minimal time. Others may rely more on NREM-based memory systems. Still, across the board, REM is remarkably common, and its presence in birds, mammals, and even reptiles suggests that it offers something valuable, perhaps something too important to abandon, even in the face of evolutionary pressure. So what does this tell us? That sleep, far from being a singular, uniform state, is diverse, adaptive, and creative. It has evolved to meet different needs. Breathing underwater, flying through storms, avoiding predators, conserving energy, rehearsing songs, and perhaps dreaming. Because even when the body lies still, the brain, in many species, keeps imagining. It rehearses, it remembers, it plays, it dreams. And in doing so, it reminds us that the borders of consciousness are wider than we thought, that other minds, other creatures, may drift through their own strange worlds each night, just as we do. We've travelled far, through physiology and dreams, culture and consciousness, evolution and electricity. But now we return to something closer, more personal, your sleep. The way you lie down each night, the way your body softens into rest, the rhythm of your breath, the weight of your eyelids, the thoughts that either quiet or spin. For all the science we've explored, for all the theories and discoveries, sleep remains, for each of us, a lived experience, and sometimes a difficult one, because in the modern world, sleep doesn't come easily to everyone. We try to rest, but our minds resist. We lie down, but stay awake, or we sleep, but wake too soon, or too often. So here, at the close of our journey, let's ask one more question, perhaps the most practical one. How can we sleep better? And to answer that, we turn once again to the science of sleep, not to complicate it, but to gently guide it. Good sleep begins before bedtime. It begins with rhythm. The body loves rhythm. It runs on it. Hormones, temperature, blood pressure, digestion, all tied to internal clocks. And the master clock, as we've seen, is the circadian rhythm, roughly 24 hours, synchronized to the cycle of light and dark. To support it, the most important thing you can do is go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. This anchors your internal rhythm. It helps melatonin rise when it should. It helps cortisol, the wake-up hormone, rise at dawn, not at 3 a.m. Irregular sleep schedules, sleeping late on weekends, staying up into the early morning, create something known as social jet lag. Your brain believes you've changed time zones. It takes days to adjust. Consistency is the foundation of deep rest. The next key is light. Your brain doesn't just sleep. It tracks light. Special photoreceptors in your eyes detect daylight. Even if you're not looking directly at the sun, these signals tell your brain it's morning. Be alert. In the evening, the opposite is true. Darkness is a signal, a whisper to begin slowing down. So, each morning, try to get natural sunlight. Open a window, step outside. Even 10 to 15 minutes of light helps regulate melatonin later in the day, and in the evening dim the lights. Avoid bright screens, especially blue light from phones, tablets and laptops, which tells the brain it's still daytime. Some people use warm lamps. Some use blue light filters. Some switch to reading, drawing or quiet conversation in the hour before bed. The goal isn't to be perfect. It's to gently remind your body night has come. Next comes wind down. You can't go from high stimulation to deep sleep in one step. The brain needs a transition, a glide path from wake to rest. Create a ritual. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but it should be predictable. A warm drink, herbal tea, maybe chamomile. Brushing your teeth, then reading a few pages. Stretching, journaling, listening to quiet music or white noise. Even just sitting in low light and breathing deeply. When these behaviors happen consistently, the brain begins to associate them with sleep. Over time, your body starts preparing automatically, as if it recognizes, oh, it's time to rest. Then there's the sleep environment itself. And here, details matter. Temperature is a major factor. Your body naturally cools as you sleep. A drop of just 1 degree triggers drowsiness. So keeping your room slightly cool, around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius or 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, supports this process. Darkness is another essential. Even small amounts of light, a street lamp through a curtain, a digital clock face, can interfere with melatonin production. Blackout curtains, eye masks, or covering light sources can help. Noise should be minimized or replaced with calming sounds. White noise, rain, or crackling fire can mask sudden noises that might wake you. Even the hum of a fan can offer a soothing backdrop. Your bed should be a space of comfort, a mattress that supports your body, sheets that feel good against your skin, a pillow that lets your neck relax. It doesn't have to be expensive. It has to be yours, inviting, familiar, quiet. Now, we turn inward. Because sleep isn't just about the body, it's also about the mind. One of the most common sleep disruptors is rumination, the mind circling the same thoughts, looping worries, anxieties, or to-do lists. To ease this, many people benefit from writing down their thoughts before bed. It helps the mind feel heard. It clears space. Others use relaxation techniques, progressive muscle relaxation, tensing and relaxing each muscle group. Deep breathing, like the 4-7-8 technique. Inhale 4 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8, 8. Guided meditations. Many apps and recordings offer calming instructions. Visualization. Picturing a place you love, safe and quiet. These are not tricks, they are practices, and with practice, they become powerful. Some also turn to sleep sounds, like the fireplace you may hear now. Gentle rhythmic audio that lulls the mind. And some use narration, slow, calm storytelling, not to explain, but to invite, to accompany the descent into sleep. Of course, there are also things to avoid. Caffeine, even 6 to 8 hours before bed, can disrupt sleep. It blocks adenosine, the molecule that builds sleep pressure. Alcohol may help you fall asleep faster, but it fragments REM sleep and leads to early waking. Heavy meals, spicy food, or sugar before bed can stimulate the body. Intense exercise too close to bedtime can raise core temperature and adrenaline, though exercise during the day improves sleep at night. And finally, lying in bed awake and anxious creates an unhelpful association. If you've been awake for more than 20 to 30 minutes, get up, leave the bedroom, do something quiet under low light, and return only when sleepy. This helps your brain associate the bed only with rest. There are also clinical tools when needed. If insomnia is persistent, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, is the gold standard. It's been shown to be more effective and more lasting than sleep medication, and sometimes gentle supplements like magnesium, glycine, or L-theanine may support relaxation, though always best used under guidance. But for many people, the path to better sleep begins not with pills or devices, but with awareness. Sleep is not just the absence of wakefulness, it is a skill, a habit, a relationship, one that can be strengthened slowly, gently, patiently, and perhaps most importantly, be kind to yourself. Sleep isn't always perfect. There will be restless nights. There will be mornings that feel foggy. That's okay. Trust that your body remembers how to rest, that your brain knows what to do, and that, with gentle practice, sleep can become something safe again, something restorative, even beautiful. So tonight, whenever it comes for you, let the lights soften, let the air cool, let the mind quiet, and when you lie down, may you find your way back to that quiet place where the breath slows, the muscles release, and the world begins to blur. Sleep is not absence, it's return to healing, to memory, to dreams.